As that way, both Andre and I will be able to see your messages and be able to respond. So, okay, I think we're about ready now. All right, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining Corporate College's webinar series, Live with the Experts. Each session is really geared towards providing you with relevant information, tools, and topics that you can apply today. And that's to support you and really set you up for success. Adjusting to this new norm seems to be occurring on a daily basis. I'm sure we're all paying attention to the news and new changes. And we've all had to shift to this new reality on a daily basis, working remotely, learning remotely, living remotely at times. In Tri-C, we're committed to really serving you during this time of rapid change by providing actionable resources to help you and your team succeed and thrive wherever your team is located, whether they're still at the work site or they're working remotely. This webinar series is one of Corporate College's newest resources to prepare the workforce for overcoming challenges and achieving both personal and business goals. Our webinar series really covers 4 different topics, with today's really related around virtual leadership. Other sessions focus on how to work remotely, navigating a transition, and personal health and well-being, all very important during these times. And as many of you already know, Corporate College really has a very distinguished and talented team of facilitators and subject matter experts. Today's no different. I'm so pleased to introduce our presenter and facilitation specialist, Andre Bryan. I've known Andre for a number of years and just enjoy working with him. But to tell you a little bit more about his background and his expertise, he is a senior consultant and facilitator here with Corporate College, but he specializes in management consulting, operational excellence, business transformation, and technical training in both global supply chain, logistics, technology, and supplier capacity building in manufacturing, construction, and technology industries. Andre has over 25 years of progressively successful professional experience, including several years as a decorated combat officer in the United States Marine Corps. Thank you, Andre. To now, most recently, Andre has been selected to participate as a panelist in the U.S. Congressional Roundtable briefings before the U.S. Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. That's quite a heavy lift there, Andre. So you can tell we have just phenomenal facilitators. And with that, I am so pleased to present to you, Andre. Good morning, Andre. How are you? Oh, one moment, Andre. I think your mic was off. I think we're all set now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, Jerry, and everyone that's online. I'm actually fantastic. Hope you guys are having a great day as well. And Jerry, thanks for that great introduction. I'm going to jump right into it. And I know a lot of folks really want to understand what this thing Agile is all about. I know leading up to the conversation this morning, there were a lot of questions, and I think the college had received a number of questions about, should I join? We don't really do Agile at work. I've heard of Agile. I don't really know what it is. So I figured I'd spend some time really talking about the premise of Agile, what it means, how Agile has now become more of a business philosophy and not just a IT methodology, as we may have felt it was earlier, how this thing called DevOps is starting to evolve in the workplace. But with this change, there's not just business agility, but there's also personal agility. So there's 4 points that I want to really bring out during this session. And you see the 4 points on the screen, but to summarize them, it's really focused on how do you as an individual remain productive, relevant, and engaged at work. As the organization, second point is, how does the organization take this thing called Agile and actually make it work in their existing environment? If the environment's not Agile already, can it become and what does it take to transform the workplace into one that's more agile oriented? And is it really a good thing for my organization? The third bullet point there is, does agile really fit? And will it help us meet our objectives and our goals within the organization, especially when we're focused on customers? Organizations quite a bit say that their mission is typically customer focused. And does agile take us away from that or move us more towards being customer focus? And then that last one I really like, stop wasting time at work doing reporting and critiquing within meetings. And I oftentimes, when I'm consulting or training or working with companies, we get into this thing called meetings, and we meet to figure out what we're going to meet about during the next meeting. And Agile is a way to collaborate and maybe move away from the traditional way of doing work. So but in order for that to happen, the culture of the organization needs to change. So the fourth point that I want to cover this morning is really, is my organization's culture going to be acceptable, and what this thing culture really means, and why does it fit with Agile? So without more delay, now we know our 4 points that we want to achieve. If you look at my screen, you see that this seems to be counterintuitive, right? Despite the greatest technical boom in history, we're now in Industry 4.0. Things are rapidly changing. 5G is coming online. But the fact of the matter is that we're losing productivity. Right now, in the American business economy, and the way that the economy is driving, uh, sales are great, businesses are transforming, but what we're finding is that productivity is at an all-time low. Now, how can that be? Things are doing well. They trended upwards around 2000, 2001. You notice that we kind of had the tech boom and the tech bubble, and then it started to go down, and the internet and all these things. And we've just been up and down over the last few years. But the last 3 or 4 years, we've actually been less productive within our organizations and the business climate than going back to 1970, 1972 during that time frame. So what's really going on is, this is an interesting chart. This is from Deloitte. And there's a reason we're not being more productive right now in the workplace. And we all know that technology is on the rise, right? So we can look at it. There's new technologies at work, everything from advanced manufacturing, 3D printing, IoT, artificial intelligence is moving at a really fast rate, at a great clip. Blockchain, AI, I mean, whatever you look at it, things are really moving with respect to technology. But what's happened is the rate of change within technology, our organizations are not keeping up with that fast pace, right? Right now, people in work are becoming more stressed the more technology we bring into the workplace. People are being more challenged with the technology and what's being expected of them than what they ever had in the past. And it's pretty interesting when you talk about productivity personally. Right now, people are using apps that weren't even around 5, 10, 20 years ago, but they're using them at a frequency that's kind of undaunting as far as how many people are using different apps and how quickly apps are being developed. Uh, Again, with respect to technology, studies show that more than 70%, I think the recent study I saw was 72% of people over 13 use mobile devices at a very high level multiple times a day, which, if we have kids in the home and over 13 and oftentimes under 13, we know how addictive those devices could be. 1 in 6 people on the planet are on Facebook. So we as individuals, we're very accustomed to the growth in technology. We're comfortable with using technology, but as we see, the curve and the gap between the development of technology and how we incorporate it in our individual lives. We're not keeping up uh, with the rapid advancements of technology. But look at that business curve. Business and organizations are having an even harder time. Now, if corporations and organizations are made up of individuals, and individuals are really comfortable with using technology, then why is it that there's such a growing gap with respect to organizations capitalizing and being more productive using technology? Okay? And we're going to explore that a little bit more. And then last but not least, you see the widening gap with respect to government and public policy. So, what we're really talking about is in federal, state, local governments, we seem to be a little bit more of laggard, and we're going to explore why those reasons are. Okay? Now, uh, Deloitte in 2017 came out with a survey, and what they found was that nearly 80% of global executives rated agile performance management or some type of development using agile in the workplace was what they expected would reduce this productivity gap. The goal was that if we could remove business bureaucracies, if we could remove some of the typical challenges that we have at work, and we can kind of clear the deck of impediments, then we expect performance to actually rise in our organizations. Prior to the survey, some previous surveys, we saw that organizations tended to use a lot of different methodologies in order to try to reduce that gap in productivity. How do I make my employees more productive at work? And as a result of this survey, what we actually saw was the more effort that was put in using a number of different lean methodologies and a lot of new ways of doing things like this new hot thing called Agile, that actual performance continued to drop. And it's still declining today. So if I'm bringing in new methodologies to address this technology and productivity gap that's a result of technology ever increasing, but my uh, output and my throughput is not keeping pace, why did performance actually go down? And why is that gap actually widening? And what could the organization do to address that issue, okay? And to ensure that we address and can reduce that gap? So, what happened was leaders, and what's going on now is leaders are looking at coming up with innovative and creative ways to address that gap. How do we close the fact that productivity is not increasing with respect to the advancements in technology as we would expect? Why does my staff, my employees, and their individual lives embrace technology and use it very productively and are typically, as you see on the slide, early adopters, if not innovators themselves? They're early adopters with technology. However, in the workplace, they don't seem to be leveraging it as much to become as productive as we think they should be. Okay. So we're not figuring out how to leverage technology more in order to be more productive in the workplace. And the goal is to uh, try to close that gap. As we see here, the innovators in the organizations typically are motivated. They're excited. They love to come to work and try new things, all with the intention of being more productive. But something happens in the organization oftentimes that stifles that. And you may see it yourself. I see it all the time in the myriad of organizations that I visit, whether it be in the auto industry, whether it be government agencies, manufacturing, service industries. It doesn't matter. Technology just doesn't seem to be the driver of that organization as much as we think we should, or as much as we think it should. And early adopters kind of get a little frustrated. And what happens typically is they decide not to embrace technology because it becomes too challenging in the workplace to actually employ and adapt technology and embrace it. Many of them end up ultimately in the organization, ultimately become laggards uh, when it comes to technology. So the goal always is, how do we work in an environment and possibly make the programs that we're working on more relevant to the customer? How do we make the programs we work on more enjoyable for our workforces? And how do we ensure that the culture of the organization is one that would remove any impediments to leveraging and using technology? And what we found was that uh, one of the address this problem is to actually use and leverage this thing called agile project management. And we're going to start to talk really briefly about what agile is, but the goal of agile, both from a business perspective as well as a personal perspective, is to make any program, and it doesn't have to just be software. Right? So it's transition from just a software environment to the broader organization. And our goal really is to figure, how can we bring more value to our customer more quickly. And it doesn't matter whether our customer is internal, right? We're doing a project for uh, another department within the organization. Maybe I'm the IT group, and I've got to deliver more than just break fix issues with respect to the customers. I got to really start to understand their user stories, and I've got to produce something really quickly for them because they have this demand, right? And if I don't produce for them really quickly, I'm actually contributing to that performance gap. I'm actually contributing to the lack of productivity in the organization. If it's an external customer, uh, we've got the same problem. Our external customer is expecting us to deliver more value more quickly. And we've got to figure a solution. If we can't support our internal customers, we sure as heck not going to be able to support our external customers at the level of expectation that they would have. So the problem, again, is that the gap between productivity, leveraging technology, and holding people accountable within the workplace to deliver that customer value, that problem is just growing, and it becomes very challenging for us to do that. Now, there is good news, right? I don't want to sound totally doom and gloom, but there is totally good news, and I've seen it by working in a number of organizations over the past 5 to 7 years, leveraging and using this thing that we call agile to really understand and help organizations see that there is a solution, and that the organization can adapt and can foster an environment that removes impediments to learning. It removes obstacles to technology and leveraging technology in the workplace. And it removes traditional, what we would call soft skill challenges that our teams, our employees typically have. And those are challenges around communication, collaboration. Sometimes our teams have challenges with just defining what the problems are and being able to effectively communicate the challenges that's keeping them from being productive. Oftentimes, our customer relationships aren't very well. Uh, uh, Customers don't feel comfortable in some instances working with us. And we have a challenge with really being transparent and building trust with our customers so they feel like we're not only responsible for fixing their problems, but we're also accountable to them. And this creates a not just a productivity problem, but the mere existence of our organizations and what we're here to do really becomes in jeopardy. And organizations that don't adapt and come up with solutions to address these problems in the workplace are organizations that are not only losing market share, but they're organizations that aren't being relevant anymore. They're organizations that aren't building and growing and developing a customer base in order to remain competitive. And that's it's very easy to see. You think about it, realize that right now only 11% of the organizations that were on the Fortune 500 list back in 1960 are even in business. 11%. 11% of the firms that were Fortune 500. And the other interesting thing about that, not only did a lot of companies go defunct by not addressing this problem of lack of productivity and other issues, productivity is just the root cause. And then there's a lot of symptoms that come as a result of not being productive. But not only are those companies defunct and not around anymore, you also find that a lot of organizations are uh, today are trending that way, and new arrivals are coming onto the scene. New arrivals are being those new Fortune 500 companies, new arrivals that seem to have cracked the code and come up with this solution to this productivity issue are now the high flyers, right? They're the companies that's extremely successful, regardless of what type of environment we're in. These companies are growing, even amidst these unprecedented times. You see Amazon put out that they're hiring 75,000 more people. You find other organizations have found creative ways to address the issue and the problem of productivity, and they do it through people. Okay? It's not just a system or a one-shot solution. People are at the root of developing this solution. Okay? So we know what the problems are. Several companies are doing a great job at providing the solution to the problem, but many companies are having challenges. The other interesting thing about the successful companies that have cracked the code is that not only are they now entering, that Fortune 500 list of high growth, high productivity, and bringing customer value, but studies show that those companies are only going to remain on that list unless they are very innovative. The average company is going to remain on that list for no more than about 15 years. So I find it interesting that Industrial Revolution, Industry 2.0, et cetera, which was the advent of the internet, et cetera, that companies in the length of time that they are considered successful Fortune 500 companies are that curve is being flattened, is a popular term right now. They are not experiencing the ups and downs as much. However, the amount of time that they remain on that Fortune 500 list is actually decreasing, okay? 15 years on average. Now, how do we become one of these successful companies that solves the problem of the productivity gap, the gap in performance management as a result of increased technology and our inability to manage and harness that technology? In order for us to do that, organizations' mindsets have to change. And if you look at the old rules of uh, if you look at the old rules of how the organization uh, function versus the new rules, there's some pretty interesting things on this chart. I came across this chart maybe about a year and a half ago, another product of Deloitte. And it looks, one of the things that really jumped out at me was that roles and job titles were clearly defined. And that was the old rule of business and productivity. Okay? We know what our titles are. We are in a functional organization. As a vice president, as a department head or a manager, as an assistant vice president, there are roles, rules, and responsibilities that go along with that title. Okay? So organizations under the old rules are more hierarchical, more functional, and more siloed. And in the new rules, teams and responsibilities are clearly defined, but job titles, our roles within teams change regularly. So when it comes to a way of developing and improving productivity, the new rule says that in order to leverage technology, people in the organization must be flexible, must learn new skills, and figure out a way to not be siloed, communicate more effectively throughout the organization, be more transparent, build more trust, as well as have greater relationships with our customers. So those are the new rules in the shift versus the old rules. And if you look at a lot of those, you can see how they just don't work anymore, right? We had one here that I identified that the halo effect. People become leaders through promotion. So because I've done an extremely good job at the role that I played at work, even if I was not impacting productivity organizationally, I still got a promotion. I was rewarded for that. And that is one of the old rules. Now, people create followers, meaning that in the workplace, I have influence not through promotion and a title, but I have influence because I'm able to be innovative, creative, be more productive by leveraging the resources that the organization made available to me. And I'm able to do that because I understand how to overcome obstacles, and the organization is removing impediments that would keep me from being more productive. So, mindsets in the organization need to change if we are going to truly address this issue of not being more productive and more agile in the workplace. Now, in addition to changing mindsets, at the core of having a different mindset is this principle that's at the heart of Agile, which is servant leadership. And a lot of organizations that I venture into now understand this concept of servant leadership and the principles of servant leadership. And they are challenged often, though, with respect to what does that really mean? What does it mean to become a servant leader, and why is servant leadership really at the heart of an agile transformation or this culture of agile in the organization? Servant leadership means that I am an active participant, and I am committed to the success of the organization, but I'm also committed and more importantly, committed to the success of my team members. I'm more committed to the success, and I value the input and the communication with other team members within the organization. It also means, in addition to being an active listener, that I'm empathetic. One of the great strengths, as I said here, of servant leadership is the ability to, as it says, heal oneself and others. When you're empathetic in the workplace, it affords you uh, an ability to kind of see what I call that third eye, right? So I can see with that third eye, and I can come to understand some of the challenges in the workplace and how those challenges and those impediments and obstacles prevent my colleagues, my team members, my staff from being successful. So, as a servant leader, understanding those challenges that they face, either with the processes that's in place in the organization, the lack of tools, or the lack of transparency within the organization, understanding that and really caring about that affords me the opportunity to remove those so my staff, my people that I work with, my team members, my colleagues can be more successful in their jobs. And then awareness. Servant leaders have to really self reflect, understand themselves, and then be more aware of others. Okay? Be attentive of what's going on in the organization and become avid learners. We're going to see here in a second that Agile really is a business philosophy that opens the door for everyone within the organization to continuously learn, not continuously improve a process and become process driven, but continuously learn within the organization. Conceptual thinking. Servant leaders have to conceive problems or conceive solutions to problems. They have to be able to get to the root cause quickly and then conceive solutions that don't even exist today. Right? So conceptual thinking as part of servant leadership means that I can explore, I can imagine, I can think about possibilities that don't actually exist right now. And the sky's the limit. I can do everything from uh, mind mapping to design thinking, which are all concepts within the agile world that allows us to come up with creative solutions and ways to solve problems. And as we solve problems, we start to notice that our productivity level continues to increase. That gap doesn't widen anymore. It actually starts to go in the opposite direction and we start to close that gap. And last but not least, one of the core principles of servant leadership is our ability to look ahead. So not only am I able to be retrospective and uh, take a look at what we've done in the past and what we could do better, but I'm really understanding from lessons learned how I could make changes within the organization, how we could do things differently, and how we can make challenges and problems that may have occurred in the past, make those things history and create a new reality based on the learning from mistakes and things we've learned that we've learned from the past. So, servant leadership, in order to become more agile and the organization to become more agile and individuals to be more productive through this thing called agile, servant leadership really is at the heart of that. And it's at the heart of transitioning the organization culture to remove impediments and problems that will allow people to leverage and capitalize on technology to be more successful. Now, what is Agile really? I've talked around it quite a bit, but I haven't given a firm definition of what Agile is. And you'll hear different schools of thought. Some people say, Agile is just project management on steroids. Or I've heard Agile is, it's just the flavor of the month. It's here for now. It's like Baskin Robbins, right? There's 31 different flavors of Agile. It's here right now. We'll move on. Technology is moving so fast. Agile will be a thing of the past here in just a few years. I hear it's beyond being a fad. It's a way to take control away from leaders that have been in the organization for some time. It's a way to disrupt the organization. So I've heard a lot of negative as well as positive. I've heard that it's been the savior of organizations and kept organizations from becoming defunct, or that productivity was on a trajectory down that would have really ended the organization. But thanks to Agile, things came back. So you hear a lot of different things about what Agile is. And I'm just going to hit on a couple of things here. And I kind of highlighted them in black writing. Agile is a philosophy that really focuses on bringing rapid value to our customers. Bringing rapid value to our customers. And we do that from being transparent and asking for continuous customer feedback, not a once a quarter survey, or in some instances, a once or 2 year survey. It's not a marketing campaign. It is continuous customer feedback. Working with a client now where we are exploring and working with them to focus not as much on customer feedback, but on feed forward. And within Agile, there's methodologies and processes and ways where feed forward can be just as valuable and more so than feedback. Okay. So not just what the customer is explaining to us about what we did, but more so what they would like for us to do. And Agile affords us that opportunity. Agile is also a philosophy of continuous planning, continuous testing, continuous integration, using small increments of work for staff and the workforce to be more engaged in what we're doing through the planning, the testing, as well as integrating the solutions that they come up with. Okay? Agile is lightweight, so it's really allows for some customization, some flexibility. It allows for us to be ad hoc at times, to bring in resources we need and then to let those resources go when we don't need them anymore. Traditional waterfall method of project management sometimes focuses more on efficiency, we call it, right? So we end up focusing more on delivering processes than we do delivering products. Not that traditional waterfall is bad and we shouldn't do it anymore. We do a great job at the College of training and certifying and leveraging, teaching people how to leverage traditional waterfall. But there are some opportunities with Agile that you don't have when you practice the true traditional waterfall methodology of managing projects and managing work. So when I say Agile is lightweight, what I'm really meaning is that Agile is not so heavily focused on efficiencies derived through processes, where it becomes the point that the organization is great at delivering process, but they are not great at delivering products and services and deliverables to their customers. And Agile really goes back to servant leadership. So, what is Agile? It is a philosophy of servant leadership. It's about leaders within the organization, and that doesn't go by title or rank. We saw that the old way was I have a title or role or rank, but it really goes throughout the organization where if everyone adopts this attitude of servant leadership, it's really about empowering people on our team, our colleagues, and those that we work with laterally, and those that we report to, and those that report to us. It's really about making sure that everyone feels empowered. They have the ability to collaborate cross-functionally. So we're not operating in silos, and we can make decisions together quickly and be transparent in order to do that. Now, I'm going to give us here and put 2 minutes, but really you could do this in 30 seconds. And I'm not going to start the timer, but I want you to think to yourself and maybe even write this down if you're so inclined. Based on what I've said so far with respect to Agile and what Agile really brings into an organization, transparency, collaboration, elimination of silos, reducing roles and rules based, not focusing as much on processes, but focusing more on delivering customer value. I want you to take a look at this and on a 100% scale, are you delivering and is your organization agile because you've got happy customers, your teams are happy, and you have shippable product, meaning that you can deliver increments of work within a sprint or a really short period of time? Or is your organization actually fragile, right? You're late, you're over budget, teams are typically unmotivated, customers are unhappy, uh, you know, they're not responding positively to those annual or quarterly surveys? Or is the organization really, as it relates to Agile, productivity and people using Agile at work or Agile philosophies at work, is the organization failing right now? Is there poor morale and projects and work products are constantly late? They are underdeveloped, don't meet customers' requirements, and uh, the morale in the organization just seems to be low. So rate yourself 100% with respect to your organization. Are you agile, fragile, or failing? Agile comes with something that's the manifesto, and those that are practicing Agile, I think the responses, some of the early responses that the college got was that there are a number of people that are actually engaged in some phase or development of Agile within their organization. They've adopted the principles as well as the Agile Manifesto, and others are considering it but are still unsure really what is the benefit of Agile. Well, the Agile Manifesto that was developed in 2001 says that we value individuals and interactions, working with people over processes and tools, working software, that's any product. So we value a working solution for our client, whatever that is. So it may not be software, it's something I manufacture, or it's a service that actually solves a customer's problem. But we value that over comprehensive documentation. We value customer collaboration over contracts. We don't look to win and have our clients or customers or our vendors and our suppliers lose. We really focus on the client, the customer having a win, the organization having a win, and our vendors and suppliers having a win. So customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and then our ability to respond to change over following a plan. In order for us to do that, I mentioned earlier that mindset has to change. If I'm going to implement Agile in the workplace, then the culture and the mindset of the organization has to change. So ask yourself, how does your current way of working, thinking, and organizing? Those are three big areas of culture within an organization. And does your organization work in a manner, think in a manner, and is organized in a manner that aligns with the values of Agile? Do you and have you created an environment where people at work can actually capitalize on Agile values? Way of working, a couple of things is that is my organization building and fostering trust where people know that if they make a mistake and fail, that's okay. We want them to fail fast, learn from it, and then come up with a solution. That's a way of working that's more agile. And are we servant leaders? What's our way of thinking within the organization? Are we uh, disciplined uh, to the values of agile? Are my workforces more agile because I allow them to easily use technology that's available to them? And are they able to simplify the solutions within the organization for our internal and our external customers? That's a mindset change and a different way of thinking. And then how do we organize the work? So in order for people to use Agile at work, work has to be decentralized. Functional organizations with silos is not conducive to the new way of doing work and bringing in Agile in an Agile environment. Self-organizing teams and staff and groups, departments, divisions, they understand the work that needs to be delivered in order to bring maximum customer satisfaction. Do they have the ability to self-organize in order to meet whatever that requirement is and then reform themselves as needed in order to be successful? An agile environment allows that to happen. Agile in the workplace, when our folks are using Agile and our teams are producing in an Agile way, remember customer value and delivering that rapidly becomes our goal and our mission. It also aligns with the strategic vision. So, whatever our vision is, the goal would be to improve our vision using Agile, which means our mission may need to change slightly, and our objectives and our goals may need to change slightly in order for us to be able to improve on the strategic vision. Another assessment. So think about your organization's way of thinking, working, and organizing. And this is a chart, and I know that the presentation will be sent to you afterwards. And I would encourage you, use this within your teams, use this chart within your organization. It's a great Agile and Scrum tool to really assess your way of thinking, working, and organizing. So at the top in the green, if your organization you feel is great at removing impediments and there's no impediments to implementing an agile environment, and then as you start to ask yourself these questions, then you're at the top of the chart. And if you read all the way down to the red, then there's just the opposite, the other extreme. There's major impediments, the team is totally blocked, productivity is down, and like that early chart is trending in a negative way because our way of thinking, working, and organizing isn't conducive to an agile environment. Okay? Did this exercise recently with an organization that had been going through an agile transformation for, I think they are on their second year, and things just weren't moving the way that the organization anticipated. And here's some of the results I got when I talked about assessing and really talking with the leadership about how they think, work, and organize. And uh, some areas of the organizations felt that they had a high level vision and that the organization was moving in that direction. But if you look at the bottom, we had disconnect. There were a number of people in the organization that felt that there is no one setting a vision at a high level. Impediments aren't being removed. Obstacles to individual productivity were insurmountable, and that the leadership seemed disconnected from the products and what needed to be delivered to the customer value and was more focused on running the organization and making sure processes were done. So we got total extremes within this organization. And one of the challenges that they faced was some people felt that Agile was working well, and some felt that it wasn't after 2 years of introducing it into the organization. One of the things that, with respect to proof source, organizations that implement Agile do produce output 37% faster and are transforming their value to the customer much more quickly. Another proof source is that Agile projects are more successful. They typically don't fail at the higher rate that traditional projects fail. So 42% of Agile projects from 2014 to 2018 had a really high success rate of 42%, while traditional projects were only at 26%. So nearing the end, I want to say, what does it really look like to become Agile at work, and how do we do it? Here's the steps. So this is not the one-step solution, but there's a lot of things that need to happen. One, we've got to learn to be a lot more collaborative in the workplace. We can't spend time focusing on getting as much work done as prioritizing and getting the right work done. So it's not about speed. Agile's not about speed of getting work done. It's really about prioritizing, getting the right work done, and incrementally providing value to the customer. Work in time box, right? Give ourselves either 2-week sprints, etc., by constantly looking for customer feedback and feed forward, and then adopt a culture that moves away from organizational gravity. And for those that don't know, many of our organizations suffer from this, right? Gravity is the processes and systems in the organization kind of acts as an anchor and down, right? And we can't deviate from that, which is a challenge. And it's really difficult to change culture. However, you can change the system that people work in order to make culture conducive to Agile. Culture is a big deal in the organization. And if you just talk to millennials, I like this chart because it really focuses on what millennials see. And they see culture in an organization as one of the guiding forces as whether they come into the workplace. Now, remember that earlier chart said individuals adopt technology much faster than business and organizations do. So if we have that type of culture, then we can attract more of the technological natives. One of the things that we really want to focus on, Agile allows individuals in the workplace to have a breadth of knowledge and experience, but even more so a high depth of expertise in the work that they do. So as I become more Agile, I kind of expand my horizons within the organization, and I can perform a lot better at work. So you double the velocity of people productivity when you expand their breadth and expand their depth. If we don't, we end up with disengaged employees. And part of the problem is that studies show that we spend right now more than 50% of our time at work. And if we are disengaged, that really means that half our time of our lives, we're doing things that we don't want to do with people we don't want to do it with, and in an environment we don't want to be in. And that's not good. Last but not least, I would ask that you rate your organization's readiness for Agile and whether or not you feel like you're ready to do a transformation. And if you are, one of the great places to engage and start is at corporate college. I just put as my last slide some of the Agile courses that we offer. And and I'm sure Jerry would support anyone that's interested in finding out more about Agile. And that's it for my time. I hope I covered those 4 basic points that I wanted to cover. And the biggest thing, really understanding what could Agile do in an organization that's open and ready for transformation. Jerry, I'll turn it back to you.
Wonderful. Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Brian and Andre. I did have a couple questions come in, and if you have a moment, would love to see if you can address these. One question that came in is if somebody who's on the line who is really interested in hearing about Agile, and since you've worked with a number of different manufacturing companies, you may be able to respond to this, but applying those Agile concepts and how they can be adapted to an ISO 9001 design controls requirements. Are you familiar with that, Andre?
Absolutely, exactly. Not just 9001, but 14,001 and all the ISO requirements. Within that environment, Agile affords us the opportunity to collaborate more around Agile or around ISO requirements. And it allows us the opportunity, and it, we notice in a lot of ISO engagements now, is that cyber is becoming more important. We're realizing that the standards aren't being relaxed, but we've got to be able to respond to those standards much more quickly. So, really quick, the best way to address the ISO requirements and the ISO standards that oftentimes can be stringent is to leverage Agile and what it does in order for us to rapidly come to corrective actions when we are non-conforming to requirements. Agile allows us to quickly take on and come up with solutions for nonconformance. And it allows us to rapidly engage, address those nonconformity issues, and it opens up the door for us to quickly resolve a lot of the problems and make sure that we adhere to the ISO standards. So there are an auto manufacturer that I'm working with now that will remain nameless, but we've introduced Agile and the strategy was to improve some of the challenges around 9001 as well as their environmental standards of 14,001.
Great. It is great, and I know that's where that Agile was kind of born more out of an IT application, and manufacturing quickly adopted it. But Andre, I know you've worked with a number of different organizations who are not in producing a specific tangible product. So do you have a number of examples or how you've applied it to, say, a nonprofit, or especially one question here was, how do you apply it to a public entity like a local government?
Excellent, great question. Nonprofits and governments probably, and this is not to berate those industries, but they probably need to adopt and would be much more productive with a agile environment than your traditional for-profit businesses. And the reason being is that the requirements and the standards and the laws around how they do the work that they do kind of stifles creativity and innovation. Agile allows the workforce in those types of environments to collaborate more quickly around an issue or a problem, keeping the customer focus in mind. So if my customer is a tax-paying citizen and I'm a government agency, how do I uh, understand their challenges and then work collectively and collaboratively to break down impediments in the organization so I can bring a solution to the citizens, right? That's what the smart cities approach is all about. If I'm in a nonprofit, my objective is to deliver a program to those that are in desperate need of it. And usually that has to happen rather quickly. Rather than coming with a total complete solution in an agile environment, I can do incremental solutions, start to have an impact as quickly as possible as I continue to build out the solutions for those that are receiving the benefits of what my nonprofit is truly designed to do. The challenge, both in government as well as nonprofits, is aligning that strategy, right? Aligning the strategy with the vision. And that's really difficult to do when you have a functional organization. Agile at work starts to break that down, the silos, and it really starts to focus on delivering customer value.
So that is something too that I know a lot of organizations, it doesn't matter what industry sector you're in, breaking down those silos. I'm glad you mentioned that because uh, another attendee commented, really, how do you, is Agile really a great way to kind of meld and break down those silos?
Agile, I find in all my years of doing project management, even in the military, you mentioned my military background, we were pretty great at adapting to change. Uh, Silos don't allow for adaptation to change. And Agile is a methodology when brought into the organization by its nature, it forces you to adapt to change. And
Mhm.
when you do that, you start to break down those silos and cross-functional teams collaborate together. So it's breaking down silos. It's using Agile as a methodology to do that. Why? Because the focus is not on the process between those departments. The focus now is solely on customer value and delivering it rapidly.
Right, right. Well, with that, Andre, we are now at time. So thank you so much for your time this morning and really sharing, and helping us better understand how important and productive Agile can be, but how it really also boils down to a personal mindset and a business strategy, and almost really how it has to become a part of the organization's culture.
It does. Agile is definitely a part of culture, and agile transformations really is nothing more than transforming cultures within the organization. So I'm glad you mentioned that. It really is all about transforming culture.
Great, great. Well, thank you again. And thanks to everyone for joining us this morning. Please remember, Corporate College is still here to serve you with essential learnings to overcome challenges you may be facing right now. And as you can tell by Andre's presentation, we just have a great team here combined with our virtual classroom training or self-paced online programs that we can provide organizational consultation services, training, as well as coaching. And when you visit the Corporate College website, you'll find our learnings are available in a virtual classroom format, everything from the Agile project management and Lean Six Sigma to our frontline leadership certificate program. And for groups, we can also accommodate you as well in a virtual classroom session and really tailor that program to your team. So please feel free to watch Andre again. We will have his presentation this morning up on our website early next week. And please feel free to share that presentation with your colleagues. And you can also stay up to date with us on social media. Thank you again so much for joining us today. Please stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks, Andre.
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks, Take care. Have a great day.